Hello, this is Mrs. Duncan, your English 101 instructor, and I'm going to talk a little bit about bias, which is a key part of our source evaluation essay, and some of the feedback I get on in class and online discussion boards is just not really being clear about bias. So I'm going to use this to sort of screen and then sort of talk to you about it just for a few minutes and see if I can help make it clear. The question at the top is why should we check bias, and that is because it could affect reliability. By definition, bias is when a statement reflects a partiality, preference, or prejudice. It's also when they try to convey a particular point of view, and that in itself is not bad. And that's the thing this particular article tends to focus on the negative side of bias. We want a bias if it's just a point of view, if it's an expert opinion. We go to a doctor because we want them to have an idea of what's wrong with us. We don't want them to be neutral and say, well, I don't know, it could be this, it could be that. And so in a very loose sort of way, we could say they have a bias, they have a viewpoint, they have an attitude, an opinion that says, we believe based on my diagnosis, my facts, and my credentials, right? As a doctor, this is my conclusion. And we would think that that was reliable because the doctor's qualified, he has a medical degree, he has good reviews, he bases his diagnosis on tests that he has run, on his expertise, these things that are kind of on our list, right? Who is this person and where did this diagnosis come from? And it's in a hospital or in a clinic, and the doctor has credentials, and their bias is based on those facts. Now, bias is bad when it's just somebody's opinion and they really don't have the facts. So that's what we're trying to establish when we do source evaluation for reliability. Everybody has an opinion, but everybody's opinion isn't an expert opinion, and sometimes it's very influenced by personal experiences and personal opinions, just attitudes and impressions based on their own perceptions, what they've heard and what they've experienced, and it may not be reliable. So we have to look at these things. What facts has the author omitted? Now that means you have to have done your homework to know that that there are facts omitted. What other information do you think is kind of missing? And is there really a slant, positive or negative? And that by itself is not bad. Like I said, if they establish it with facts, if they build it up with logic and evidence. It has to do with the wording. So what are some indicators whether it's bad or good? Well, look at the wording, the language. Is it really extreme? Does it have all or nothing? Is it really emotional? Does it tend to just sort of generalize everything and have very few facts and data to support it? So watch out for the emotional language, watch out for the only one-sided perspective, watch out for opinions by people who don't necessarily have the expert credentials to be knowledgeable on the topic. I mean, certainly everybody's entitled to their opinion, but that doesn't mean all the opinions are reliable, and especially for a college research paper. So that's where we have to kind of distinguish, and that's very important. What is their political point of view? What does the author stand to gain? Who's paying for the website? These are also hints, things that can kind of help you discover a bias that may not be on the surface with the emotional language, or kind of pushing things on you and trying to make you feel like you're wrong if you disagree with them. So look at these other things. Let me give you a quick, just simple personal example. If you were going to ask me about what car or vehicle I would recommend, just because, not, well, first of all, understand I am not an expert, right? I know what cars I have driven, I know what cars I like, and my opinion would be based on my personal experience, and that might be fine for you, but that wouldn't carry a lot of weight, in a research paper. The other thing is I would probably, whatever I would share with you, would be influenced not only by my own personal preferences and experience, but see, I'm going to recommend Honda products. And yeah, I do live it. That's what I own and what I've driven for Gee, more than 10 years. But you might say that bias is influenced by the fact that my husband works for Honda. He works for Honda Manufacturing. Now, he does not directly stand to gain. Like, you go to he doesn't work at a dealership. He's not a salesman. That would be more obvious bias if I was trying to get you to go and buy a car from him. Yeah, you need to see my husband. He'll sell you a car. Because I stand to profit by that recommendation. That would kind of taint it a little bit. He works for the manufacturing company, but that still influences my opinion. It still gives my bias, kind of limits my viewpoint. Oh yeah, Hondas. Now, if I were to instead kind of give you factual data and give you, oh, it's Motor Trend Car of the Year, X number has the highest reliability factor, and I gave you all this data from outside sources, reliable sources, then my bias would be less a factor because I'd be basing it on facts. I would be basing my opinion or recommendation to you on what other experts say and not based on what I like and based on that my husband works for that company. Does that make some sense? I mean, it's not bad for me to have that opinion, and it's certainly not a bad bias, but you'd want to kind of weigh that out as to what's the fairest and what one is likely to be more reliable. What you would want to weigh in on that. You want to have some facts. You want to have expert credentials. So that's what we're trying to look for, and you have to really pay attention. It's not always on the surface, but these are some questions that hopefully will help you discover with whether if they have a viewpoint, if that's necessarily a bad thing, or if that bias is just so strong and so one-sided and not really supported well by facts and expert opinion to make it actually not reliable for at least a college research paper.